What's up, guys? We were talking about this for a while over the past week or so because Dave was posting his videos and talking about everything that was going down with the future for Nintendo and how there's gonna be two announcements. And we've been talking about it on and off on podcasts, right, guys? I mean, we've been doing this for a while now, I think.
Yeah.
Like we always bring up Dave's video, well, his set of videos that he's doing, because he was doing a good job really building anticipation for it. And then out of nowhere, Sony does this announcement where it was like, oh, we're going to have this stream, like randomly. It was this really weird one. It's like 3 weeks away. It's really early to announce it. And then I put it up on Twitter, and then Dave pretty much points it out. And it appears that is where everything's going down. He changed the thumbnail on his video, and it seems that it's Sony that's going to be making this big announcement.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we all go, well, what would really, because remember, Dave's like, it's going to make Nintendo fans mad at first, and then Nintendo's going to have their announcement. So what's the one thing that would make Nintendo fans mad that Sony could do is announce a more powerful handheld or a more powerful hybrid system. Mm-hmm. It is what my feeling was. And it seems like everybody has that same feeling. After I started posting it everywhere and messaging people about it, everyone kind of like thought about it and was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense that would be the case. I mean, is that, I assume that's just what we all think now across the board for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was even kind of reconfirmed to me because, there's that big Chinese leaker, Daniel Ahmed, and he tweets out all sorts of like real heavy analytical data. And he had like clearly caught wind of it a long time ago. And he jokingly just posted a picture that said Vita 2, and it had these two disconnectable Switch controllers basically. And he posted that, and as a joke, he retweeted it today. So clearly he was just basically being like, huh? Well, yeah. Welcome to the future.
It seems like that's the case. So is that all right? So here's where it gets interesting. If Sony does that and puts out something that's similar to the Switch, let's say it is like a handheld, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it has detachable controllers. First off, people are going to be annoyed because it looks like they're copying them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, where else? I mean, Evan, that's like the? I mean, all right. So Sony copies people. We see it. But all the companies copy off each other a little bit as well. I mean, we see the analog stick from Nintendo 64. Sony slaps 2 on their PlayStation controller, right?
Well, it's always a trick when a design is good. Why would you try to veer too far away from it? Because, I mean, you go away from that and everyone hates it. What was the point? Everyone's become comfortable with it, and everyone seems to agree that it was a good build for the Switch.
Yeah, I mean, Evan, do you remember when the Wii remotes came out, like the Wii, and we used it, and we were like, this is all right. But then the Move controllers came out, and we were like, wow, these are like way better when it came to responsiveness, but you needed the camera and everything. It seemed like they took the Wii remote and they were like, let's see if we can innovate, or well, not innovate, but make it better, kind of thing.
Or remember, man, these achievement things are scientifically proven to make people play games longer and increase replay value. We should come out with trophies.
Yeah, right. It's interesting the way they work with that, but it's not like it's new, right? We see Rumble from the Nintendo 64, and then of course Sony adopts it, and it's just the way it's been, where you're going to copy off other people. I did post that picture that I've had for a while because I posted it of the Sony executive Shuhei Yoshida. Yeah, where he was actually at the Switch event. I remember I had that a while ago, and I was like, what's he doing there? And he's sitting there taking pictures with his cell phone, right?
Yeah.
And now it's starting to make more and more sense at this point. It seems like Sony had something kind of in the wings, and they were like, well, let's go look and see what they're doing, because that patent did come out a little after that, I believe. Or was it later?
Technically a long way before it. That patent says that work began in 2015, and then that got posted. The patent originally was leaked in like January, so like 2 months before we really saw the Switch, but definitely close enough that it's kind of weird to be like, oh wow, everybody was kind of working on that same thing at the same time.
Yeah, so that's it's interesting. I mean, the Vita did not do well. I like the Vita. It was a cool system, but it didn't do really well, right? I think most of us understand that.
Yeah, we found that they were focusing so much on the gimmicks that they were looking at with the touch functions and all that they lost the gameplay behind it. So
yeah, I love the Vita, and even I have to say I hated the games that forced the back touch functionality, because they're changeably, like, I think one of the Killzone games, you'd tap it to throw a grenade, and there'd be times where I'm literally in a firefight, I'm like, please God.
Yeah, the Uncharted one, they had the touch functions for cover. You used the back to like climb faster up things.
And melee attack. I remember you'd run up and you'd actually swipe the screen and he'd punch. And it was like, is that necessary?
Yeah.
Right, just let me hit the buttons. Yeah. They seem to get a little out of control with that. But overall, I mean, it's like Sony forgot about the Vita, but then a lot of other companies did not. We start to see a lot of like Japanese RPGs go to it, and they still buy it 5,000 to 6,000 usually a week in Japan. So it's still kind of alive in Japan, strangely, but it's a handheld, so it's going to be alive.
So what some people have been saying to me is it seems like this announcement is very purposely planned, because if you actually look at the Vita sales, they've been very steady in Japan for a long time, and they're just now dipping. And so it seems like they're very purposely being like, okay, we've had this other device built, fully tested, and ready to rock. Let's drop the Vita 2 or whatever it's called.
Yeah, that's going to be the other thing. What are they going to call it? Because they're no way do they keep the Vita name. I don't think they can do anything like that. They have to change the name completely.
Yeah, and it's the Wii U. It's the curse of the bad name.
Exactly, and they also would have to change their memory storage. No way can they go proprietary, right? They have to go SDHC micro SD card, the thing we use in the Switch and everything else in our life right now. You can't give us a memory card that costs $50 and expect us to buy it, and it provides what, 32 gigabytes?
Yeah. I 100% believe that it's going to be called PlayStation Go. 100% think it's going to be called that, because they've tried to walk that name out a couple times, and this seems like it's finally time where they can just really be like, this is the PlayStation Go. You play it, super powerful device on the go.
PS Go?
Yep, I will put heavy money on the fact that it'll be called PS Go.
PS Go. I can see that. It has a nice little ring to it. But do you think it'll be a hybrid, or do you think it'll be just a straight up handheld?
I think it's going to be a hybrid in that it will play PS4 games, but I fully believe that this is going to be an on-the-go console. I'll put all my money on that, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm betting on black.
Do you think it'll use cartridges, or it'll be a download only?
Download only. So from looking at the schematics and really spending all morning poring over all the notes and getting them translated as best I could, the fact that it has an HDMI out and a special USB port in, it really makes me think that it's going to have a thing where you can like transfer a license from your PS4. Like PS4 is becoming such a digital system. I fully think that this thing is going to be built to play like digital PS1 games, digital PS2 classics, and then like digital PS4 games. I 100% think that's what this is going to be.
Oh, we have someone else who joined in a little later. It's Jesse from Game Over Jesse. How you doing, man?
Great. Thanks for the invite. I was a little bit late of getting back to you whenever I seen the live stream was being set up.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, we're talking about the possibility of this PlayStation handheld that's been kind of making the rounds ever since. It seemed like, I don't want to say it got decoded, but Dave's message seemed to come through with that announcement of that stream from Sony. So the third company, or the company that they were talking about other than Nintendo, seems to be Sony. And most of us are kind of connecting the dots, thinking that it's some new hardware that probably released a handheld. Is that kind of where you are, or are you thinking something else?
I think for a long time I've been expecting Sony to kind of work on another prototype at least. I know Shuhei Yoshida mentioned that they did work on some prototypes during interviews and stuff. But they said that they were moving from, instead of having handhelds and a home console and VR, they were dropping handheld for the VR. Mm-hmm. And they were kind of putting all their effort into the VR. But with the success that Nintendo has had with the Switch, I think Sony sees that and is like, hey, this thing is selling as the most powerful handheld console there is. What if we put out one?
Yeah, probably really. You're onto something. They're probably really easy to convince a board of directors that you should take that chance when the competition is doing so well in Japan.
Right. What comes to my mind is, at first, whenever the Wii came out and it had its motion controls gimmick that everybody was talking about, it didn't really seem like PlayStation or Xbox was really interested in that. They wanted like a solid controller you could play with. But then once the Wii started selling outrageously, everybody wanted one. Everyone's grandmother, grandfather, uncle, whoever wanted one. PlayStation was like, oh, there's something here. Maybe we should do our own. And then the PlayStation Move came out that had its own motion control. So maybe with the success of the Switch, the same things happened, where PlayStation looked at Nintendo once again as like, hey, this is actually a genius idea.
Well,
so we have a question in the super chat real quick. They're asking, this is Kuru Tengetsu 91. Couldn't they do Xperia integration with a new portable, making crossplay easier with a 4G connection? I think they're referring to the phone, obviously, the Xperia Play. I guess trying to take advantage of the 4G network that's kind of mostly around the world now, I think. It'd be interesting because, of course, we got 3G with the Vita, and
and
I don't know. I mean,
you remember the booze of that crowd when they announced
but what
that.
if it was? What if it's unlocked when it comes out? You know, what if it's not tied to AT&T that made people throw chairs onto the stage?
Yeah. I think that could be good. I actually used the Vita's functionality a lot, and it wasn't the fastest internet, but I actually played some online shooters on there. I played Killzone and stuff, and I got a lot of freaking headshots, so clearly the lag wasn't that bad.
So, well, here's my real question. Let's say it comes out and it's a hybrid, right? It can plug into the TV and you take it on the go. It's essentially what the Switch is, right? But Sony labels it as their handheld device. It's not their home console, it's their handheld. But Nintendo is labeling it as their console, like their home console. By Sony coming out, the company that it has technically is bigger in the gaming scene right now with more consoles, with the PS4, and labeling it a handheld, do you assume at that point that, well, as much as Nintendo wants to tell us it's a home console, people are just going to view it as their handheld straight up then because Sony views it as a handheld?
Sorry, you go first.
I was going to say, yeah. I think, strangely, I think a lot of the world does still view the Switch as a handheld. I'm not sure what Nintendo's marketing always shifts. Sometimes it's the new home console, sometimes it's the new handheld. But from all the language I see talked about online, I think more people do see it as this super powerful handheld. So if Sony comes out with a thing that's the most powerful handheld in the world with the PS Go, then I think they're going to change their marketing and be like, oh, this is just a home console. This is a Nintendo home console.
Yeah. I mean, that's what were you saying, Jesse?
I was going to say that it's interesting that Nintendo is marketing this as mainly a home console, because if you follow the trends of past generations, the newer current generation handheld console has typically always been somewhere between the last gen of the home console and the newer gen. So it's like the PSP was somewhere between the PS1 and the PS2. The PlayStation Vita was between the PS2 and PS3. So if you look at the Nintendo Switch in that same category, it's closer to what a modern day handheld device would be. It wouldn't be closer to what you would expect from an actual home console. It would fall in line with what just an average on-the-go gaming handheld would be. So it's interesting that Nintendo's marketing it as a home console, which I know that the Wii U was failing, and that's why they're doing that, and they still have the 3DS for their on-the-go mobile players. But I just see that it's interesting that they've fallen into this step to where their home console is now on par with another company's potential on-the-go handheld.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and as a small correction, and not only because I'm obsessed with the PSP was actually slightly more powerful than a PS2, and the Vita was actually intended to be slightly more powerful than a PS3. They even actually were referring to it as the new Uncharted machine in their ads. So if they continue that trend, this could theoretically, like if it follows that pattern, which there's no evidence that it wouldn't, this could just be about as powerful, if not slightly more powerful than a PS4, which is crazy to think.
Well, my only concern with that is I've been looking at mobile chips the past couple days just to see what they could do to get there, and it would be extremely difficult to get it there and have manageable battery power. Now, the Vita, though, provided a pretty good Uncharted experience, right? And that's not a very powerful system anymore. The Switch is like way more powerful than the Vita. But there are things that Sony could do to get a handheld close to the PS4, depending on what they're willing to sacrifice on the system. That's what's going to come down to. If there is no detachable controller, for example, they could save money there because Joy-Cons cost Nintendo quite a bit of money to make. Mm-hmm. They could save money there if there's no detachable controllers, and they could save money by not even making it a hybrid, just a handheld. Mm-hmm. And they could put, I've been doing some research, the most powerful chip I think they get a hold of and put in is still the same company that they used in the past with the Vita, for example. They could go to Power VR. That's the same chipsets that go into high-end Apple iPads, and they could actually get one that was announced in March, by the way. It's not even on the market right now. There is a Power VR chip that is announced in March and is about 3 times as powerful as the Switch's X1 right now.
Well, see, and I 100% think that, like, beat for beat, I think that's what it's going to be. I don't think it's going to have disconnectable controllers, because I've really examined the blueprints extremely closely, and the notes actually specifically say that a primary function of it is going to be the vibration of the controllers. That's supposed to be like a big perk of the machine. So that also makes me think it's not going to have a disk drive, because if it's shaking, that would cause skips. So I think that this is going to be a digital only all-in-one device.
Sure. We got another super chat from Pablo. PS4 sales in Japan aren't spectacular after 2 years of release. If you compare the original Wii sales, the Switch sales should alarm them. I think they absolutely are, and I honestly think that's why we will probably see a handheld from Sony, because if anything, it'll make people go to the store and choose, do I want the Switch or do I want the PlayStation Go, the PS Go, whatever you want to call it. Then they have to decide. It's not just a straight up, well, I'm getting the Switch because it's the most powerful handheld, and it has, I don't know, the third party games like FIFA on it, right? I don't know if they'd buy that out there, but it gives people choice. It takes up market share essentially, because there are Sony fans over there right now that have to buy a Switch because there's no other handheld there that's that powerful.
Well, see, I thought that something that people kind of forget is like PlayStation 4 is still killing it in Europe, and it's really, really killing it in America. That's where like the 60 million people like live that have bought one. But in countries where mobile gaming is a lot bigger, like freaking France, like almost every single person in the world who's a gamer in France owns a Switch right now. Same in Japan. Like everybody who can get a Switch gets a Switch. So if you suddenly be like, check out the Vita 5, all of a sudden they're gonna be like, oh.
I have another super chat from Kuro Tengetsu again, 91. Maybe Sony could have an Xperia handheld and adopt Samsung's approach to VR, making a portable VR that works with the PlayStation 4 and the camera. That is something they could do. You're talking about like a headset where you drop it in, like kind of like the Gear, where you have that headset, and then it would use the camera and the PS4. Or just the camera, I guess. Although, believe it or not, Snapdragon is actually working in some technology, which they could actually pull from them, that would allow you to not need any kind of tracking device with your VR, which is interesting. I do think Sony would want to implement VR quickly into their handheld, though.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. Sony is really, they've been doing several interviews recently specifically about their VR, and Greg Miller of Kind of Funny straight up asked him, is PSVR dead already? And they're like, no, like we already have another like 15 projects, and the guy like right there on the spot listed off like another 5 big pushes they're doing for VR. So even though I can't foresee them putting it on a handheld, it definitely makes sense.
It's interesting to think that with how dominant Sony has been in the gaming division, they would be essentially entering an uphill battle here, going into the handheld market again, because Nintendo has by and large owned the handheld market, mostly because they have something like Pokemon, for example. I really think if Nintendo did not have Pokemon readily available for handhelds, they would have had a much harder time. But I mean, if you have Pokemon and it's coming to the Switch, Sony, I'm not sure how easily it's going to be for Sony to enter the market and actually do well compared to the Switch.
I want to say that if there is a handheld coming from Sony on par with the Switch, there's the pros and cons, because Nintendo would then have a direct competitor that was equally as powerful or possibly even more powerful. But in the long run, I would imagine that anyone who's interested in a Switch would eventually get one anyways. And in terms of third parties being kind of hesitant to develop for just the Switch or make a lower version of a game for the Switch, maybe if Sony has their console out and then Nintendo has the Switch out, and they see that, hey, there's 2 platforms, potentially twice as many copies could be sold, because we're now not only selling to the Nintendo fans or those who just picked it up to game on the go, now we can also sell to the PlayStation fans. And I think that would be enough to get those third parties that are hesitant to bring over some of the games. So that's just a thought that I had.
This is interesting. This is another super chat from McChaos. If they implement a flawless streaming system from PS4 to a potential PS Go like Rainway has demonstrated, it may compete. Stream over Wi-Fi anywhere. I think they're essentially asking if they would if they could incorporate a way for you to stream easily from the PS4 pretty much anywhere, much like how Rainway, because Rainway, I can tell you, I talked to to Andrew. Rainway's already been greenlit for the PS4 and the Xbox One. It's already done. The Switch is the one that he's waiting for. But is that something that you guys would think would really add that kind of functionality? I mean, think about being able to go anywhere, stream over the internet, and even if you can't play PS4 games natively, you have the option of just basically signing in. Your PS4 turns on from rest mode, and then all of a sudden you are playing Uncharted Lost Legacy with relatively, I guess, not the best picture quality and lag, but decent.
Yeah, wouldn't this be? Sorry, really quickly though. Wouldn't this just be an advanced version of Remote Play?
That's what I would assume. It's like a next generation version of it.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of people forget that the Remote Play on the Vita was actually extremely good. In fact, there are still videos that I just found a video this morning while I was doing research of this guy who was literally getting a PlayStation 4 controller, and he just rubber banded a Vita on top, and he put the Vita on Remote Play and synced his controller, and just using the Wi-Fi of it, he was literally like at his office and playing his PS4 like 20 miles away flawlessly, and he's playing first-person shooters and Skyrim Enhanced Edition portably. So it shows that technology does exist, granted in its primitive form right now, but if they release an updated version of that, I think that could be extremely good. Because I think a huge portion of the gamers, a giant portion of gamers, is people who have office jobs and people who have access to like daily Wi-Fi. It's people who are, even if you're working at Target, you can tap into like Target Wi-Fi on your break and get a little bit farther in Last of Us 2. That is a huge selling point.
Yeah, believe it or not, I actually use the Remote Play on my PC. Believe it or not, a lot. I'll actually play my PS4 on my PC more than I think I play my PS4 at times. So I'll play it upstairs.
I was gonna say what you just mentioned about the Remote Play and first-person shooters when Destiny first came out on PlayStation 4. Because I never really had time to sit in front of the TV and play. Most of the time spent playing Destiny, because I also had to walk around and watch after my daughter because I couldn't be glued to the TV. I had to kind of follow her around. So it would be me sitting at the kitchen table or upstairs or wherever away from my PlayStation 4 still playing Destiny on the PlayStation Vita. And as you were saying, it was a very decent experience. They mapped some of the L2 and R2 buttons to some of the back of the touchpads. You could use the touch screen as some of the other buttons that were missing from the Vita, but it was like I actually got used to it to where when I went back to play it on the actual PlayStation 4, I had to relearn how to play it on actual controllers because the experience was so great. But this was over local Wi-Fi, so not sure how amazing it would be like over 30, 40 miles or something.
Dude, so no joke, I have a video somewhere, and it's of me when Final Fantasy XIV first came out on the PlayStation 4. Like, I got it the opening weekend, and I just got my Vita like 2 weeks before, and so I wanted to test it out. And so I actually filmed myself playing Final Fantasy XIV on the PS4, Remote Play on a Vita, and I literally filmed it in my closet of me like running a dungeon flawlessly and like playing all the. It's just one of those things where it's like, this is it. This is the future. I can't read the text because it's literally 2 pixels tall, but I assume they're telling me I'm doing great.
So well, here's there's another super chat from Marvin. I just want to grab these before the little bar runs out.
Yeah.
Marvin Ginyard. So so he's jumping ahead to Nintendo's major announcement. We're going to talk about that in a second. Saying, so could Nintendo's major announcement potentially be a powerful home-only device that works in conjunction with the Switch, kind of like a Wii U 2.0? Without spoiling everything that I'm about to say later on, yes. But what were you saying? Go ahead. We'll come back to you, Marvin, on that when we actually get to that topic.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, you were. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, I was going to say with PlayStation's big push on the Vita, well, really, it didn't last that long. But I remember this coming from interviews from Kind of Funny, Greg Miller, which you mentioned earlier. Whenever there would be E3 or PSX or something, and they would be interviewing someone from PlayStation, whether it was Shuhei or the lead developer on a game, and they would say, okay, this is obviously coming to PlayStation 4, but will it also be coming to the Vita? And their answer was, with Remote Play, every game is playable on the Vita. And I thought it was kind of a weird cop-out because it is, but it's not as great of an experience as it would be if it was designed specifically for it. And going back to with competing with the Nintendo Switch with this new handheld, PlayStation released their PS TV or whatever it was, where you could have the Vita TV, where it would just plug into the TV. and then they had the actual console to take on the go. So they had a console that could be played on both the TV and on the go. It was just two separate versions of that one console. So whatever they're coming out with next, if they do, I think it would be a no-brainer for it to combine those two. Because didn't the original Vita have a way on the bottom for developers to plug it into a monitor?
Yes, but nobody was allowed to photograph that. There's no pictures that exist of it, but there were Vitas that were made fully functional for developers that had HDMI out.
Yes. That's what we're thinking. We're thinking they'll probably have some kind of powerful system. Another place they can really take advantage of over Nintendo here is definitely the screen. I think Sony could put a really nice looking 1080p, maybe even 1440p screen on it, depending on the hardware inside of it as well. So while the Switch screen looks great, I can see Sony really trying to take advantage of jumping ahead of something like that.
Yeah, it would be amazing if they just threw away the whole concept of their proprietary SD cards and used actual SD cards, because I think that's what stopped a lot of people from buying.
I have a feeling they learned their lesson.
Yeah. Even though the Vita got relatively cheap, the price of the memory cards never really went down. So while you were looking at it being like, oh, I could buy a used Vita or a new Vita for $80, $100, $150, you look at the price of the memory cards and you're like, oh, I have to pay half the price of the Vita just to get a decent card.
Yeah,
I think
good luck finding like a 64 gig card for anything less than like $70 or something.
Right,
it's crazy.
At one point, I actually had to sell my Vita to pay a power bill once, and I took my memory card out. I was like, I can afford another one of these. I can't afford another one of these.
So let's all right. So we talked about Sony's thing, and we'll end with this. According to Dave, there are two announcements coming. There is one that is from another company that was unnamed. We figured it out. It's Sony. Probably a handheld. By the way, I will be streaming it, so if you have your little alarm bell thing down there next to my name, I'll be streaming it. Maybe I'll have some other people there with me. It's going to be at 3 a.m. my time, though, so unless they change it, it's going to be very late or early. I guess that'd be early. But they will have an English stream, which I will be doing. But we're going to do that. And according to Dave, there is a Nintendo announcement that's going to be later on in the year that is almost going to be like a counter, I guess. So Sony's announcement is going to be big. According to Dave, it's going to be a bombshell, which we think is handheld. But then Nintendo's going to drop something that's just as big later on this year to almost counter it. Now, you figure if Sony is able to release a more powerful handheld system, essentially doing a handheld device better than Nintendo, you almost figure Nintendo would then target one of Sony's two areas of expertise right now, which is either VR or the home console. Those are my thoughts. Or there's some big acquisition that everyone's missing right now. I would have to assume that they would enter. I know they're calling the Switch their home console, but I could see them building a very powerful home-only system just to compete. But I could also see them going the way of VR. We found VR code in the Switch's operating system just this week. Mm-hmm. And if there's one company, I've said it before, that could enter VR and bring the mainstream with them, it's Nintendo, simply because of the characters they have, and they would probably approach VR from an ease of entry point, like a low price or just an easy way to use it.
I could see either because I've seen rumors of both, of either a super powerful, like new version of the Switch that does not have portability. It is just something you put into the TV. But I also have seen rumors that I also pretty much believe, which is us getting a Switch Mini. I actually believe the Switch Mini announcement more, but I don't think we'd be getting that this early.
Okay. Yeah, no, it'd probably be, I figured it'd be in like October, maybe November. Mm-hmm. Whatever they're going to announce, I'm thinking it's somewhere in there. Maybe it is too early for another system, like a home one. But do you think it's too early for something like VR?
I personally, yes, especially going into the holiday season. So your first holiday, everybody talks about the importance of a first holiday, is going in there and proving, not just to fans, not just for the moms and pops buying it, but to the game developers of like, you got to beat your chest to be like, look how much Skyrim sold, even though it's old and ridiculously out of date. We still sold 10 million copies. And so I feel like if you're also like, but don't pay attention to Skyrim VR, you want Skyrim on the Switch, which also has VR. Like, I feel like that's going to confuse people.
Yeah, but what if someone just made a really good point in the chat? What if Nintendo goes out looking for a company that does VR. Like someone said HTC Vive, I don't think they'd be able to get that. But maybe there's a lesser known company that does just VR. And what if Nintendo went out and that was their big announcement, was a big acquisition of a big VR firm?
That would actually make perfect sense if they did do that, because when they went into the mobile gaming territory, they went after DNA and partnered with them. So if they did the same thing, and instead of starting up their own developers to make these mobile games, if they went to a VR company and partnered with them, traded certain percentage of stock to them to acquire certain parts so they could develop, like, they have the really cool VR Mario Kart game that's already out. So
that's a big one. I think it would be awesome if they brought over, by the way. Evan and I are really hoping that this arcade that's opening up near us, the big arcade, it's like 2-story arcade, is going to have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys can watch me play that like a moron. Like, we'll take a camera there and everything. Evan, you were just at a LAN party, right?
Yeah, just a small one with friends.
How long was that LAN party?
It's like 4 days, 5 days.
And how many times did that VR headset get broken out?
None.
Okay. You guys didn't play a rousing game of Skyrim VR?
But solo, nah. We gotta play stuff together, man.
You guys can do that together. This is from it's Kuru Tingetsu. You're just gonna make me try to pronounce that name every time. Are the announcements at Paris or PSX PlayStation Experience? It's in Japan. It's actually, this is what caught us all off guard, and I think this is why Dave felt the need to basically come out and say, yeah, that's it. It's a pre-Tokyo Game Show stream, and they do announce stuff at these. We've seen it before. So it's not uncommon to have this, but it's not common either for them to announce it 3 weeks in advance.
Yeah. So, and what a lot of people are already saying, a lot of the big analysis people are basically saying, like, over the last couple of years, Sony has more and more taken over Tokyo Game Show. Like, they've become like the main pillar that everybody else builds their shows around. Like, everyone follows their lead. If they're going to show like Metal Gear Survive, like, which they debuted at that, I think, like, everybody kind of follows their lead. So I think they could be setting this up as being like, look, guys, we're going to bring out our big guns. You bring your big guns.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. That's September 19th, though. That'd be 3 a.m., like I said, my time, Eastern. So you'll see it pop up, hopefully. Some of you guys in the chat said you didn't see the live stream notification pop up for this one. But hopefully, although if you're just joining us, I'm just going to post this on the channel, this entire video, so you can catch back up with it later if you'd like. It's up to you. But I think we're good then. So we have a feeling Sony is going to have a handheld at the September 19th presser, and then Nintendo will in some way counter, whether it's an acquisition of a company that can help them with something like VR, maybe even developing a game, or I guess there's the possibility of Nintendo introducing some kind of new system or a supplemental compute device for their Switch. I don't really know how easy it'd be for the Switch to do VR anyway. They would probably need something extra, because I know the PlayStation Move comes with, the PSVR comes with a little box that I know helps it along.
Yeah, the booster box, yeah.
Yeah, so that's possible that Nintendo could do something like a booster box kind of thing to help it along. It's going to be interesting, though. But thanks, guys, for joining us. Let me go around here. Jesse, where can they find you, man?
Me at youtube.com/GameOverJesse. On Twitter, everything's GameOverJesse. Basically, just talking everything Zelda, Nintendo, a little bit of similar stuff that you see on Spawnwave's channel, but more into theories and discussions, stuff like that.
Very cool. Evan, you got your channel stuff, right?
Yeah, I'll just drop it in chat. It's
Okay,
that,
cool.
Twitter, Instagram, all that, or you can just keep watching Spawnwave. Hopefully I can get
Someone
some
said
more.
raid CND. Is CND actually streaming right now? Hold on. Is he actually streaming right now? Oh, he is streaming. He probably has a bunch of people watching him, though. I don't think it would actually work. He has a lot of people. You guys should go watch him, though. He's a cool dude. And Max, where can they find you, dude?
Just youtube.com/Dreamcast guy. I just put up my own video on my thoughts about the specs and possible use of the PS4 Pro, or PS4 on the go, as I'm calling it. So go check that out. I also have a Top 10 Thursday will be out Thursday afternoon. I'm going to be talking about the Xbox 360 this week. So youtube.com/Dreamcast guy.
The Xbox 360. Oh, cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to do, I feel like that's such a great library of games that a lot of people overlook. So I'm doing the best Xbox 360 games you probably haven't heard about. And I got some real obscure good ones on there.
Dude, you get like a bunch of people in a live stream and everyone wants to go raid somebody. Do you see that in the chat?
It's true. It's true.
Let's go raid someone. All right. Yeah, you guys should all go to CND's live stream and just I don't know. What's something funny they can say when they get there?
Just say spawn.
Oh
Spawn,
yeah, just fill the chat with spawn. How about that? That way he'll get 700 more people there, and everyone can just yell spawn. That's fine. Thanks guys for watching. Like I said, we'll keep this video up for you. Oh, here I'll post the link for you guys too. Like I say, he's a cool dude, so I'll post it there for you, just for fun. There you go. And yeah, guys, I'll leave this video up, and you guys can go back and watch it when you have a chance. Tomorrow, though, we will do the pre-show for the Nindies, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, leading into the Nindies at 1 p.m. Eastern, then post-show with Evan and I after that. Should be fun. Thanks, guys, for watching, and we will see you next time.